Hi, Dean Berman. Thanks again for being with us. Let's get to some more questions.
Okay.
Alex, a 2L student and an SBA senator, has a two-part question for you. The first is, what are you going to do to improve GW students' job prospects? And the second part is, what will you do to bring our career development office on par with those of the great law schools into the 21st century, or if you disagree with the premise of the question?
Okay. Well, let me answer the second one first, and then that will segue into hopefully what we're going to do to help to the extent we can. So first of all, I actually, as you say, I think I challenge the premise of the question in the sense that I think that our career development office is on par with other law schools, but that's not necessarily a positive thing. I think that pretty much every law school I know of has a career services office that has been operating under a model that I think is no longer the relevant model. And that is that you know, if you did on-campus interviewing for the top X% of the class with all the largest law firms in whatever your locality is, and then you had some panel presentations on alternative career paths where you would bring in people and you know, a few students would show up, and you had big databases of firms and other job prospects in what in my day were big binders, what are now websites, that was sufficient. And I don't think it's specific to GW. I think every law school I know of operated that way. I'm not sure if it was ever sufficient, but it's surely not sufficient now. So one of the things that I'm doing is looking at every single department at the law school to see how we can do what we're doing better, how we can serve students better, how we can solve problems better, faster, more efficiently, and so forth. So, so I can't speak specifically to what we might do with career development because I'm only in my first month, but I can tell you what my priorities are. And that is, we need a lot more one-on-one counseling and a lot fewer large presentations for large rooms of people. And not that those aren't okay to some degree, but I think we need more opportunities for students to get one-on-one counseling and to get more individualized networking opportunities. So I think what that's going to mean is that we want students from day one thinking in terms of a long-term career trajectory. We want them thinking about networking opportunities from day one, volunteering for pro bono opportunities from day one, thinking about a career path from day one, and being assigned to a counselor as soon as the National Association for Law Placement allows us to assign a counselor, which is usually not quite day one, but a few months in. And also then to think about a variety of paths that you can go in with a career. So students all know about working at a large law firm in DC, let's say. But I think they need to be introduced to and have opportunities to pursue smaller firms, mid-sized firms, starting your own practice, going into business, being an entrepreneur, you know, obviously government service and public interest, but you know, a whole variety of ways in which you can be a lawyer that I don't know that students are quite as aware of. And they not only need to be told that they exist, they need to have opportunities to connect with those people. So I want more small firm weeks where people from small firms come and interact in 1s and 2s and 3s with students. I want to set up dinners or lunches or receptions so that you can have networking opportunities with a bunch of lawyers from small or medium-sized firms immediately and expeditiously. You know, I think students are smart enough to know that it's a bad economy and we can't invent jobs for them. But what we can do is I want you to feel when you graduate as if we did absolutely everything we could to help you, and that students can feel taken care of by the Career Development Office, even though we can't manufacture a job for them. We can do the customer service part, it seems to me, and so that's really what I want to focus on. We have, I think, done some things to help students' job prospects. We've created the Road to the Future program, which helps students get into the legal hiring market by providing some stipends and fellowships so that students can work themselves into a job and so forth. I think that other things that students can do, or that the law school can do for students, are to keep working even after graduation to help students connect with people. So that may be getting faculty to make phone calls. It may be continuing the relationships with the career service counselor. It may be figuring out other pro bono opportunities so that they can volunteer, which I understand is not lucrative, but at least gets you legal work, gets you contacts, gets you out in the community and so forth. So, you know, again, it seems to me that it is our responsibility not just to have you here for 3 years and say goodbye, you're on your own, but to keep working to try to make the career path ultimately get to where students want. And you know, the reality I mentioned in one of the earlier segments of the interview, I mentioned the fact that I had moved from theater to law. Careers are long. Is the other thing I think students need to remember. And the first year out of law school is the first of probably, you know, up to 50 years of a career. And so what you do in your first year is almost certainly not going to be what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. And so you know, we need to take the long view and sort of think of working towards the thing you most want. And I think that we can help students, again, in a one-on-one way, work towards that.
Now, I think you sort of have begun to answer my next question. You've been doing that in a strange way during this interview. But Kate, a 3L and editor-in-chief of Nota Bene, the law school student newspaper, writes that she would like to know the dean's thoughts on the cataclysmic changes in the legal industry. Does he think GW can lead instead of follow in the new economic reality? And if we are up to the task of leading, how will we proceed under his leadership? In sum, what is his vision for the future of law?
I don't know if I can answer the
Pretty
last
epic
part
question.
of it. The in sum is the hard part. So first of all, cataclysmic changes. Nobody really knows if they're cataclysmic changes, right? So we're obviously in a horrible economic period for the country. Nobody knows how long it's going to go on. And also nobody knows whether this is really a structural cataclysmic retrenchment that is going to be this way forever, or whether this is cyclical and things are going to change. I tend to think that there are some things anyway that are structural and that are not going to go back to the way they were. But you know, it's hard to know for sure, to be honest. And I think anyone who will tell you they know is just guessing. I guess, so the question is, how can GW lead in that environment? And I think, you know, part of it is going to be creating a career services operation that is even more proactive, providing more opportunities for students, more networking, more service, more counseling. But I think also we have an opportunity at GW to do things that help students in the job market, and by the way, also provide a better education, than almost any other school in the country, in part because of our location. So go back to when I was talking about the personalized pathways for students, right? So if you're a student and in your first year you have 4 or 5 sessions with some practicing lawyer in the area that you're interested in, and then you do a summer fellowship somewhere, and then you take some focused areas of courses and get to know a faculty member, maybe be a research assistant, and then do an outside placement in that area so you get practical work experience, and then do a capstone project in your 3rd year in that area, you're employable. And you're going to have a much better sense of contacts, an already developed network, people who are going to bat for you, and if you dive in, you will have, I think, a better opportunity to make it in this economy. So I think we've got this amazing location in DC where we can, we've got 300 or however many outside placements every single semester. We've got opportunities for students to get involved with the practice of law on a day-to-day basis, and that should put them in a position where they are in better shape than students who are at other law schools in the country. So, I think we have to take advantage of that, and I think we can be a leader. Now, another way that we can be a leader is by thinking about what the future of legal education should be in this context, and I think that goes to the future of law. And I have actually asked the faculty to I have created a strategic task force that is focused on curricular innovation, for example, and there will be students on that task force and consulting with that task force. And I think that the core of legal education is really strong. I think the basic experience that I talked about earlier, where you have a gut reaction and then you have to articulate 6 or 7 other points of view, we do that really well. And I think that's really core, and we have to do that. Beyond that, I think there's a wide open range of what legal education could look like going forward, and I see no reason why a law school that is one of the top schools in the country and that is located where we're located can't be at the forefront of imagining what legal education should be going forward.
So, given this kind of hopeful outlook, and I think I share it, it's the way to get through my 3rd year of law school. There probably will still be students who don't have a job by graduation. What's your advice for these students?
My advice for the students is to keep working. It sort of goes back to advice that I used to give to actors when I was a theater person. I had friends, or I would meet people who said that they're actors, but they weren't actually doing anything. They were sitting around waiting for a casting call and someone to hire them. And I said, don't sit around waiting, or do something else while you're sitting around waiting. Go find some friends who want to do theater and start working. Similarly, with law, you get out there, volunteer your services, find someone whose work you admire and talk to them, meet with them, follow them around, hang around with them, and so that they can't say no to you, and then work as much as possible with them. There's a great story that I know about because at Arizona State we were the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, and so I got to meet and get to know Justice O'Connor. And she likes to tell a story about when she graduated from law school, and she faced obstacles that are worse than anyone faces because nobody would hire women. And so she would go to law firms, and all they would say is, we would love to hire you, but only as a secretary. And so she could have given up, but instead she went to the county attorney for San Mateo County, And he said, well, you know, I'd love to hire you, but I don't have an office. He took her around the office, and he said, you know, I don't have an office, and I don't have any jobs right now. I don't have any money. And she wrote a letter, which is apparently in some archive even now, to him, where she said, you know, I'm willing to work. You don't have to pay me. I notice that in your outer office next to your secretary, there's a desk that's not being used. You don't have to give me an office. Just let me come and work for a while. And she, you know, 10 months later, 11 months later, she got a job there, and, you know, now the rest is history, as it were. So I guess the answer is the career span is long. Keep hustling, keep working, don't turn down any networking opportunity, don't turn down any volunteer opportunity, don't turn down any person who's offering you the ability to connect with someone. Take every bar association event, just keep going, get out there, meet people, and eventually something will come through. And again, careers are long, so what happens in your first 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, that's not the trajectory of your career. 50 years is the trajectory of your career, and you have to take the long view. Now, having said that, I recognize it's painful. The economics are hard, the debt burden is hard, you know, you feel you know, misused somehow by the system or by the law school and so forth. So I get that, and there's nothing that I can say that will make that better. And the only thing that I can say is you can't wallow in that, because if you wallow in that, it'll spiral and you'll never get out, because nobody wants to hire someone who's down. You've got to figure out ways to keep yourself up, keep yourself energized, keep yourself happy, so that at least you can project that to the people who might hire you.
Now, you mentioned an interesting route to a job that Justice O'Connor had, but how about more of a personal question?
Yeah.
Your best, worst, and funniest, if you can answer, your best, worst, and funniest jobs.
Well,
I think number one is easy.
Right, best job, GW Dean.
Right.
It's best job. No, I would say quite seriously, being a dean has been, the last 3 years at ASU were the best 3 years of my professional life. I loved it. I miss theater. I love sitting in a theater watching a show I've directed, and there's nothing quite like that. But I actually think being a dean is a lot like being a theater director, because you're trying to create an energy in the room or in the building that will make other people feel safe to have ideas. And then when other people have ideas, you put them in motion and you try to run with them, and you try to build structures to make those ideas happen. And that's what I did as a director, and that's what I want to do as dean. So I love being a dean, and I am looking forward to this next phase of being a dean here at GW. Worst job. So this is interesting. You know, I can't think of a worst job, and I think that part of that goes back to what I was saying before about, you know, what do you do if you don't have a job? Find something that's fun. You know, find some sort of a volunteer opportunity or something that you like. I've certainly had periods where it was difficult for me to make huge amounts of money, let's say as a theater director. So what did I do? Well, you know, I found jobs as administrator of other theaters as a day job, and then I directed shows in the evening. And then I sort of got into the administration side. At first it was just a job, but then, you know, there was a joy in balancing a checkbook for a business and making all the numbers work out. And so find the things that are exciting and interesting about whatever it is you're doing, and stay active. So I don't really have a worst job. I guess I do have a funniest job. I ran, so for us, there was one summer that I ran the elevator. It was one of those old manual elevators in New York. And when the various elevator operators would go on vacation for 2 or 3 weeks, I would be the fill-in. And so I ran the elevator in my building, and you know, that was amusing. It was sort of interesting to see who came and went at different hours. stuff like that.
Did you get good at leveling the elevator with the
Yeah, that was actually
lobby?
very hard to do that. For those of you who have not lived in New York and have never had to do that, it's harder than you might think.
So since being dean is your favorite job, I'm going to kind of compare you to the past 17 deans of George Washington University Law School.
Okay.
Dean Lawrence had his official GW portrait painted with the moot court, which is in the room behind us, as his background. And other deans have used desks, the quad, library scenes. Okay. Have you given any thought to what might be on your background, or can you think of something?
I have given absolutely no thought whatsoever to.
Will you please?
And in fact, the idea that anyone would paint my portrait at any time is a little frightening. But I guess I would want the backdrop, my backdrop, to be sort of a blur or a swirl of different images connected to the law school. One of my favorite expressions that came out of deaning at ASU, someone brought me this quotation and I adopted it, was from the race car driver Mario Andretti. And he said, "If everything's under control, you're going too slowly." And so what I want is a law school that is so energized, dynamic, there's so much stuff going on, it's so exciting that it feels like a swirl that's always almost out of control but not fully out of control. And so I think what I'd like would be a portrait with sort of a whirl of activity, maybe a room filled with students coming and going, or you know, some sense of motion and energy and excitement.
That's great. I think I'll adopt that also as my own motto. So the SBA Executive Board, get ready. All right. Here's something else about the kind of dynamic energy of our law school. We have a great law review show every year.
I've heard.
Will you go on record and commit to playing a part in the law review show?
Yes, I will.
Great.
I'm a little worried about the YouTube part of it.
You heard it here first.
Concern.
Well, we'll try not to do any music videos.
Yeah, that would be
You may
nice.
have seen that.
I have seen it.
Good.
So I'd rather not be involved in that part. But
all right, and
the live show part, I'm willing to be part of. One
final question.
Yes.
Who would win in a lawsuit between you and your wife?
I think my wife would win. She is, I think, more careful, precise, rigorous. She would find some arcane legal point that would win. I tend to work quicker and be sort of out front, but I think in the end my wife's careful research would win the day.
Well, Dean, that's not only a very diplomatic and shalom in the home type answer, but I think very good advice for those of us not yet married.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for watching. Dean, thanks for talking to us.
Absolutely, and you know, I hope that students will come to my office hours and will you know, try to engage me as I race around the hallways, going from one appointment to the other. I really do want to meet with students as much as I can. At ASU, I got to know almost all the students, but GW is a much larger law school, so it's going to be more difficult. But I really want to connect with as many students as I can. And then, although I'm giving myself the first year not to teach, I'm hoping to teach first year civil procedure in future years, so that'll also help me connect with students. But come to my office hours, and I'm happy to chat with you, hear your advice, send me emails, go to my blog as we discuss difficult issues facing the law school. So I really see this as a dialogue, and I'm looking forward to your input.
Thanks once again. I hope you enjoyed the videos, and continue to check out gwsba.com for more in the coming year.